Howdy, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Palmer's Summer Conservation Virtual Update. My name is Astrid. I'm Palmer's Membership and Events Manager, and we are thrilled that you are here today, and we're super excited to give you some updates on our work. But before we get started, I want to take a minute to say thank you. You being here signifies your commitment to the land and water here in Colorado, whether this is the first time you're joining us or you've been a long-time supporter. Today, we have an exciting lineup. Rebecca Jewett, Theron Verna, and Dillon O'Hare will talk a little bit about some of the emerging work that we have. They'll talk about recent successes, emerging challenges, and opportunities for you to get involved. I also want to encourage you that throughout the program, if you have questions that come up, please feel free to ask them in the chat box. We'll spend a few minutes at the end of our event today answering those questions. With that, I'd like to introduce Rebecca Jewett, Palmer's President and CEO, to talk a little bit more about Palmer's work.
Helps if I unmute myself. Thank you, Astrid. Welcome, everybody. I'm so thrilled that we have a good turnout today. I love that we're doing these virtual updates because it's such a great way to share what's going on in Palmer's world. And I'm really excited for any questions you all have. So please do put those in the chat. The Palmer Land Conservancy has been growing. I think many of you know that. And that growth is in direct response to the urgent need for land and water conservation. As friends and supporters of Palmer, I want to update you today on our vision and that progress. And I really want to make sure you all understand why we are growing and what underlies that motivation. We are in unprecedented times, featuring political polarization, economic recovery after a pandemic. We're seeing extreme heat in parts of the country, including the hottest day on record a week ago. Wildfires in Canada and California are impacting our air quality in Colorado, and of course, the ever-present issue of drought and water availability. Our mission at Palmer is to protect land and water for the well-being of nature and people. And if this work stands a chance of success in this quickly changing environment, Palmer must position itself in the strongest way possible in order to execute on our shared vision for conservation. When we asked our community what matters most to them during our Elevate the Peak listening initiative in 2021, the response was overwhelming and clear. Conservation cannot wait. The work is needed more now than ever before. The shift that I have seen in the last few years from pre-pandemic to today is that conservation as a community issue has moved from a nice to have, as in it would be nice to protect that wildlife habitat or important farm, but it's not the most important thing we should be doing. But the shift is now to this work standing at the center of our health, well-being, economic resiliency, and quality of life. And people are noticing that. Indeed, everything we love most about calling Colorado home hinges on us all protecting the very things we hold dear. We have a saying at Palmer: loving a place is only the beginning. You must have the courage to protect it. But what does courage in land and water conservation even mean? For me, my board, the Palmer team, we took a hard look at our work and asked ourselves, are we doing everything that we can be doing right now to move the needle forward on our mission? No doubt we've been doing vital work and have been for almost 50 years. The result of that conversation with the board and staff was our 2022 strategic plan and subsequent implementation roadmap. We're just now in July kicking off the second year of that implementation plan, and I'm excited to report on the progress of that first year. To put it simply, Palmer's strategic plan and the roadmap to being successful with it point to building our capacity, our creativity, and our toolbox so that we can get more conservation work done. We are taking on new and innovative projects that a more limited staff could simply not handle. We are building deeper connections with our community, and we are executing on our shared vision at the highest level possible. Indeed, the stakes have never been higher, and we're stepping up to meet them. So after our strategic plan was finalized, we conducted a feasibility assessment on our ability to deliver on these big 5-year goals. Can we do it? We asked ourselves. The results from that feasibility assessment were that we have the capability, but not the capacity to be successful. So since then, our capacity efforts have focused on 3 main areas: staff, office, and membership. We received vital capacity building funds from funders and donors that enabled us to add 5 new people over the last 12 months. And we have 4 more positions to fill over the next 12. And Astrid, you can go to the next slide. These positions are focused on our operations, community outreach, and conservation projects. People get conservation done. To protect a critical wetland or farm that produces the Pueblo chili, it takes the passion, commitment, and time of a dedicated team of smart, strategic people. Palmer's greatest resource is our people, which also includes all of you. To accommodate our growing team, to support their success, and to better facilitate how we do our work, we moved to a new office in the past year. We're in the same building, but instead of shoehorning our staff and interns into various nooks and crannies, we now have a place that allows people to thrive in their work and that they want to work in and are excited to come into and join the team. It's also a place that our partners, donors, and board also benefit from. The final and most important leg of our capacity stool is membership. I said earlier that people get this work done. We have a bold goal of growing to 2,000 member donors by 2027. This is a 4-fold increase from where we are now. It's an audacious goal, but one that we firmly believe in. This is because the more people that are committed to conservation and informing and participating in our work, the more successful we can be. We simply cannot do this work alone. You make conservation possible. You may have already noticed that we are hosting lots of different kinds of events and activities. In 2024, we will host 35 events, including film screenings, land tours, educational lectures, and more. Please join us and bring your friends and others who you'd like to introduce to the vital work of land and water conservation. Our current strategic plan sets clear goals, and the internal growth we've been able to achieve over the last year has already facilitated great progress. Land for nature is one of our pillars. At Palmer, we believe the beauty, ecological benefits, and cultural significance provided by Southern Colorado's unique landscapes. And we've worked to protect and preserve those irreplaceable qualities that make this place a special place to call home. Palmer is working on a collaborative effort called the SOAR Initiative with the Department of Defense and conservation partners to conserve nearly 80,000 acres of land in and around Colorado Springs and El Paso County. The SOAR Initiative will conserve military buffer lands, simultaneously avoiding encroachment near military installations to protect national security and conserving ecological significant land. It's a tremendous win-win project. Land for people. Palmer is the proud guardian of Southern Colorado's world-class outdoor recreation. As the lead organization on the Ring to Peak initiative, we will achieve the long-held community vision to create a regional trail surrounding Pikes Peak. And our water for life and land for food pillars are also incredibly important. Palmer's farm and ranch land protection work is a critical piece to ensuring our rural communities, economies, and food supply remain strong. We continue to address the water scarcity crisis with our Bessemer project in eastern Pueblo County, in which Palmer is implementing an innovative model for water sharing that supports both farmers and growing cities. We also have 2 new water projects that are in the works that craft creative water sharing frameworks, also striving to balance competing water needs. Stay tuned for more, as we know water is the most urgent natural resource issue we face today. So finally, and before I turn the mic over to my colleagues, this is a snapshot of what we have going on. These 2 transformational regional projects We have 3 open space projects with municipal partners that provide critical public open space for the public, and more emerging. 4 water and farm sharing projects, 2 water projects. This is all just a tidbit of what is to come. We look forward to keeping you involved and engaged. And as always, never hesitate to reach out with questions or thoughts on how you can get more involved. So with that, I will close my part and turn it back over to Astrid. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I think everybody can appreciate the little explanation on the growth that Palmer's experienced, and more, in-depth conversation about the pillars that ground the work that we do. With that, I would like to now introduce Theron Verna, Palmer's Land Stewardship Manager. He'll be informing us about a significant historical designation that one of our Palmer Protector properties will receive, as well as give us an inside look on the summer stewardship season.
Thank you, Astrid, and good afternoon, all. My name is Theron Verna, and I am Palmer's Land Stewardship Manager. Palmer's stewardship team is responsible for the protection and annual monitoring of all of our protected properties in perpetuity. Our team interprets and administers the language of the conservation easements placed on the properties in order to ensure that the conservation values found on site are being protected. In addition, our team supports the landowners of these protected properties with our ever-growing landowner services program. So as Astrid mentioned, we do have a huge bookmark event coming up. I am extremely excited to announce that the Palmer Conserved Sprague Sand Creek Ranch has been listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The Sand Creek Ranch is situated at an elevation of 8,840 feet within a sheltered valley nestled against the northwest flank of Bradley Peak in eastern Park County, just north of the National Register listed Tarryall Rural Historic District. Ooh, it's a tongue twister. The historic landscape within the nomination boundary constitutes a contributing site and then includes 7 resources, along with a number of small-scale site features, including fence posts, fences, cattle gates, building remnants, and a hay rake. These 7 historic resources include the E.J. and Marshall Sprague cabin built in 1966, the Victor Williams Homestead cabin built circa 1907, a log barn built circa 1907, a corral built circa 1907, the Dog Trot Log Cabin Ruin Site built circa 1870, a bridge built circa 1970, and the Bison Ditch built circa 1882. Jane Sprague, the grantor, owner, and steward of the Sand Creek Ranch, partnered with Palmer in 2012 to place a conservation easement on the property. Jane's vision, which is reflected in the conservation easement, is to protect the property for future generations and the continued land uses of sustainable agriculture, sustainable timber harvesting, hunting and fishing, and passive recreational and educational uses in perpetuity. Palmer Stewardship staff will be joining Jane and her family for the History Colorado Historic Plaque presentation on August 1st. Palmer would like to thank Jane for her continued partnership and congratulate her on the historic designation. Switching gears, earlier this year, Palmer's Stewardship Director, Steve Harris, and myself were selected for the American Farmland Trust's annual Soil Health Stewards Grant and training. This week-long training took place in April and was geared towards equipping land trusts and conservation organizations with rangeland soil health principles and current data and research on the subject. As part of this training, Palmer was awarded $10,000 in grant funding that is applicable towards hosting soil health education events, attending additional trainings, and assisting landowners as related to rangeland soil health, among others. Palmer is thrilled to announce that a portion of this grant funding will be granted to Taryn Mance of Pueblo County in the addition of 3 miles of cross fencing on her Palmer conserved property, known in our records as Ramsey 1. This cross-fencing project will establish a rotational grazing system for Taryn's Corriente cow-calf operation and ensure that the range throughout her property sees adequate rest throughout the year. Studies of proper rotational grazing indicate the increase of living cover, water retention, nutrient cycling, and biodiversity. In turn, these factors contribute to increased landscape resiliency to erosion, higher wildlife and vegetation biodiversity, and increased water filtration and quality to both surface and groundwater features. Palmer's assistance of Theron's cross fencing project is just a small part of our ever expanding landowner services. Palmer strives to provide our landowners and the general public with various resources related to land and water conservation and stewardship. You can get a peek at some of these resources that we provide our landowners at www.palmerland.org/landowner services. And with that, I will pass it back to Astrid. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Theron. It's so exciting to hear about Sand Creek. What a cool designation that property will receive. Also from our land team, I'm excited to introduce you all to Dillon O'Hare, Palmer's Senior Conservation Manager, to talk a little bit more about the work that Palmer does in Southern Colorado on the Bessemer Irrigation Ditch. Dillon.
Thanks, Astrid, and thanks, Theron, for doing such a great job of leading the impactful and perpetual side of our conservation work. My name is Dillon O'Hare. I am Palmer's Senior Conservation Manager, and I'm going to talk a bit about the conserving and protecting side of our work at Palmer. And this is the work that gets done that eventually, as Theron mentioned, gets passed on to his team once a property is conserved. So in my role at Palmer, my primary focus is working with farmers to protect land and water in the lower Arkansas Valley. And as Rebecca mentioned, this work is directly linked to our two strategic priorities, land for food and water for life. Like much of the state, agricultural communities in the lower Arkansas Valley are experiencing increasing pressure on their water supplies. And because agriculture was one of the first industries to come to the state of Colorado, rural landowners tend to have the most reliable water rights. These water rights are significant both in terms of the quantity of water that they represent and the seniority or the place that they have in the order in which water rights are served. And so with reliable senior water rights, rural communities are the best source of water for growing cities in the West, especially along Colorado's Front Range. So today I'm going to talk about the Bessemer Farmland Conservation Project, how it fits into our strategic priorities, and how it is addressing the competing demand that we're seeing for water here in Colorado and beyond. To build a little bit of context, though, historically, when a city or a municipality buys water rights from a farm, that farm has been dried up and the water has been transferred or diverted to the city that purchased it. This is called buy and dry, and this practice has really wreaked havoc on rural communities and throughout Colorado. And so in the lower Arkansas Valley, what we can look to our neighboring county, Crowley County, to see what the real impacts of buy and dry can look like over the past few decades. Crowley County, farmers in Crowley County sold 95% of their water rights. And what was once an agricultural powerhouse is now one of the poorest counties in the state, one that has more inmates than citizens. And so the buy and dry paradigm isn't the only way, however, and at Palmer, we're developing new tools and strategies to balance that demand for these precious water resources in a way that ensures the viability of agriculture and allows also for municipal growth. So for the past 9 years, Palmer has been working in Pueblo County on the Bessemer Farmland Conservation Project. Following a 2009 municipal purchase of 1/3 of the water rights from farmers on the Bessemer Ditch, Palmer ended up joining the community mobilization effort to explore pathways that would mitigate the negative impacts of traditional buy and dry. And this was essentially the community being able to look east to Crowley County and say, we want to avoid what precipitated in Crowley County, and what can we do in the interim here? And this is where Palmer plugged in. And so what you can see on this map here is a map of the Bessemer Ditch. The city of Pueblo is just to the west or to the left side of the farms that you can see. And what you can see is that the farms in red are the ones that sold their water back in 2009. And it just so happens that a majority of these farms that are outlined in red are some of the most productive farms on the ditch. And so when dry up does eventually occur, when the leases on this water expires, it's not just going to be a third of the farms that dry up, it's going to be a third of the most productive farms. And so there's going to be an outsized impact when dry up does occur. This is the challenge that we're looking to address. These are the impacts that we're looking to mitigate. And so when that buy and dry does occur, traditionally it's been a zero-sum game, and it all results in degradation of rural communities. But that's not the case that we see with the Bessemer project. To avoid this scenario on the Bessemer and in Pueblo County, Palmer is utilizing traditional tools like conservation easements to achieve conservation outcomes. But more importantly, we've also built new tools to address these complex challenges that are occurring both here in the Bessemer Ditch, throughout Colorado, and throughout the entire Western United States. And so when we think about our toolkit, we can go back to 2019 when Palmer established the substitution of dry up provision in Division 2 Water Court. This was part of the municipality's change case when they were changing the use of the water that they purchased from agricultural to municipal. And what this new legal tool allows us to do is we can partner with individual landowners on the Bessemer Ditch to optimize the use of what are going to be limited water resources, all before the dry up occurs. And without getting too technical, what this tool, this substitution of dry up provision allows us to do is it allows us to substitute the dry up covenant that exists on the most productive farms and have that transferred to farms that are more suitable for dry up when it works for individual landowners. And this is, like I said, this is incredibly important because there's a real economic opportunity to strategically dry up certain farms instead of others because of the productivity that certain farms have. And then there's environmental benefits that exist because if you're strategic about where you do direct the dry up, you can increase the footprint of riparian ecosystems, for example, which not only are providing wildlife habitat, but increasing the land's ability to filter runoff water from agricultural fields and improving water quality. To support these efforts, Palmer has also commissioned numerous studies and other tool development. These include financial reports, economic impact analyses, and online interactive decision support tools. All of these tools provide a framework and the supporting data for scaled conservation on the Bessemer Ditch. And so today, it's really exciting that we're now in the implementation phase of the project. We've secured a water plan grant from the Colorado Water Conservation Board to pilot the use of the substitution dry up provision and to develop a scalability assessment that helps us identify and create a roadmap for scaled success on the Bessemer Ditch. We're also working with Pueblo County to ensure that the economic and environmental impacts of the dry up that's coming, we're going to make sure that we can work to mitigate those impacts in a way that is significant and meaningful. And this is just an exciting time for the Bessemer project. We've got years of research and tool development and community mobilization behind us, and we're excited to be beginning the implementation phase. This is important because we're using this as an opportunity to establish proof of concept, which allows us to build confidence in the strategies and the tools that we've developed and in the process so that we can begin looking at how this project will take shape for years to come. So that was a lot on the Bessemer project. I could also talk about it for hours, but I want to thank you all for taking the time to learn more about this project, and we'll have some time now for a question and answer session.
Thank you so much, Dillon, on that update on the Bessemer work that we were up to. Before we conclude our summer conservation update, we have a few folks who have submitted questions, and we're going to take some time now to answer them. So we're going to go ahead and jump on in. Theron, I think this one's for you. What are some other examples of landowner services that Palmer currently is providing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Astrid. We have various partnerships with municipal agencies, counties, and state agencies such as Colorado Parks and Wildlife. And we have a great network of connections with those organizations. So oftentimes we hear about things as they're happening from these organizations, and we're able to apply them very quickly should an owner want that on their property. So for example, we have the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Game Damage Program, which helps assist owners that have issues with fencing, such as elk running up against the fence and ruining it as they're moving through to their different grazing areas. That applies to mostly ungulate populations such as sheep and goats and elk. And we work with owners and CPW to apply that on our properties. And we also work with noxious weed assistance, connecting owners to local conservation districts. We help apply for grants, various types of grants for infrastructure, ranch equipment, farm equipment, water resource development. It kind of runs the gamut as far as grants, and we have a great resource on our page of different grants that may apply to different owners. And then with that page is open to the public. So if it applies to anybody even outside of our conserved property, we hope that it is a valuable resource to you all.
Thank you, Theron. Rebecca, I think this is a question for you. What's the tentative timeline for the Ring the Peak project?
Yeah, great question. Ring the Peak has been a long-held vision already for a few decades when it was first identified as a priority in our region in the Pikes Peak Multi-Use Plan of 1999. And we have partnered with the Trails and Open Space Coalition over the last few years on it and just recently assumed project leadership. It is a long-term project, as so many of our important, most critical conservation projects are. The main challenge with Ring the Peak is closing about a 7 to 8 mile gap as the crow flies on the southwest side of the peak. When all is said and done, that trail might be more like 10 to 25, 30 miles even to cover that gap. So we are working with landowners in the area, developing partnerships to figure out the best route and to help make sure that the final outcome of the trail is answering a lot of important questions. And there's a long-term sustainability plan. Who's going to manage it long-term? How do we minimize the impacts to private landowners in the area? And how do we really make this a tremendous resource for the region? So all of that takes years. We're anticipating that this is at least a 5 to 10 year project. We hope to make progress as soon as possible, but it's also important that we do a project like this in the right way with all the communities around Pikes Peak, with the private landowners, and in a way that's achieving the ultimate vision that this is a world-class trail system, the likes of which could be compared to the Continental Divide Trail, the Colorado Trail. We want this project to sing. So it will take some time, but we are also moving it forward right now. So this is the nature of big, audacious projects, and we're excited to be able to move it forward and keep you updated as we make progress.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Another question that we have rolling in is, when is Bike the Bessemer this year? And this is one actually I can answer. So Bike the Bessemer is by far probably my favorite events as somebody on the events team. It's such a fun educational ride that combines our farmland work with outdoor recreation and local food. It's probably one of our tastiest events, and that's happening on Saturday, September 7th. The ride starts at 8 and goes till 2. This year, we're going to do, as part of the programming, we'll be showing our film Marisol Looking at the Sun. And if you are interested in Palmer's Bessemer work, I encourage you to please sign up. We have a van option this year. If you don't want to bike the farmland tour, that's totally fine. We'll have a van and being our caboose for the event, so you can see it on different types of wheels. So Dillon, do you want to add anything to that as somebody who was like the founder of or helping organize the first Bike the Bessemer event?
Astrid, you you really hit all of the high points. What I will share is that this event has almost doubled in size every single year since we did start it. back in 2021. And so we're just excited about the growth and offering new, adjustments to the route or conversations to have at the stops or bringing in Mirasol. So I could also just continue to look forward to this event every year. I'm really excited.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dylan. Another question that we have, can we have a link to the landowner services page that Palmer offers? Yes, we can definitely send that in our follow-up email after this virtual event. So thank you for that. Is that all okay. Another question that we have, if the Sand Creek Ranch is close to the Tarryall Reservoir, perhaps we can collaborate with the SoCo Velo Bike Club, which has sponsored regular bike rides in the area. This could be a future event similar to Bike the Bessemer. I think that's a great idea. Thank you so much, David, for that comment. Do we have any more questions? One second, bear with me here.
David, you can also reach out to me at my email and we can get you hooked up with Jane Sprague and get conversations started about anything concerning that bike route and any potential future movings in that. That's a great idea, and we appreciate your input.
We have another question coming. Okay, can you speak a little bit to Palmer's involvement with the city of Colorado Springs or the city of Fountains annexation discussions? Great question.
Yeah, as we have gotten more and more involved in the challenges of water in the West, but most importantly to all of us in our region, we've had some incredibly important conversations internally. First and foremost, our focus is on working with farmers and rural communities to protect the amazing assets that we have there with local farm ground. So, first and foremost, we're looking at on-the-ground conservation and coming up with these tools that Dillon spoke to earlier as our first focus. However, and I think our film Mirasol, for any of you who have seen that, which showcases the farmers in Eastern Pueblo County and is about that area of the Bessemer Ditch, it really showcases something that I think is incredibly important and that has been a missing part of the conversation in our region, which is as a city like Colorado Springs grows, this question of where does the water come from? And I live in Colorado Springs, as do most of us, and just recognizing the impacts of that. So part of our goal has been to illuminate really the power of our region and what a regional community really looks like here. And so our neighbors in the lower Arkansas Valley are a critical part of what makes this region strong. And as Colorado Springs is thinking of growing, recognizing how is that growth going to take place? Where is the water coming from? How do we continue to chart really important solutions that don't create winners and losers, but that create these win-win solutions? At Palmer, we firmly believe we can have thriving cities and thriving economic development and growth, and we can have thriving rural communities, but we just have to be thinking about it in a much more strategic, open way than we have in the past. We don't have a position on any specific annexation decisions in Colorado Springs or any other community, but we are excited simply to provide more elements of illuminating, what's going on in our region and how we do need to think about us as a connected region. And I think there's a lot of power for all of us in Colorado Springs to become more connected to the Arkansas River Basin, understand where our water comes from, connect with local farmers, be on Team Pueblo Chili as we all are, and recognize what that means. So I encourage everyone to become part of the water conversation, to understand it better, and to have your voice also be heard as we are having community conversations and dialogue, which have been really substantive. So yeah, thank you for that question. It's a really good one.
I think that's all of our questions for today. So as we wrap up we have one emerging question. Hold on. Oh, do you have a link, do you have a link to opportunities for teachers, specialists and volunteers to share with schools for field trips, soil, compost, etc.? I think we must have something. Christy, thank you so much for asking that question. I will include that in the follow-up email that we send after this update.
And I'll just add, as we've been growing, one of the things we're looking at is what are the resources and the partnership opportunities within the community where Palmer can help plug in. We have a growing volunteer program that Theron and other event staff, Carrie, have been tremendous in standing up, but also thinking through, where can we provide some information? So we'll send what we have, but also if you have ideas on what would be useful, we'd love to hear it. And if there are ways we could even partner, we'd be really excited to do that.
Thank you for adding that, Rebecca. Okay, I'll do a last call for questions. We'll wait a minute here to see if anybody else has anything they want to ask. I think we're good. So thank you so much for joining us today. You showing up means so much to all of us. At Palmer, we often say, and I think Rebecca said this earlier, is that people make conservation happen. And that is so true. People like you who are passionate, interested, supportive of the work that you heard about today you help make that work happen. For those of you who are new to Palmer, I encourage you to join Palmer in membership. By being a Palmer member, it means you're supporting the work that is helping protect land and water here in Colorado. By being a member, you also have special access to events and news that connect you to the land that you're helping protect and introduces you to a community that also cares about conservation. And for the majority of you that are joining us today who are longtime supporters of Palmer, thank you. Your engagement in and charitable support of our work makes patient, strategic, and collaborative conservation possible. I hope that through the programming and what you heard today, you feel a deepened understanding of the work that you're making possible and a deeper connection to Palmer. We hope that we've earned your continued support of Palmer. We ask that you continue to prioritize conservation and Palmer Land Conservancy in your philanthropic giving plans. And if there's anything that I can do to support your giving, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, thank you so much for being part of today's update. It's been an honor and a privilege to share this time with you. And until next time, take care. Thank you so much.